Before I get to my Animals as Leaders interview, I had them here in the studio a few days ago. I want to remind people to subscribe to my channel. Just hit the red button. I'm trying to get to 3 million subscribers, and I mentioned this in my last video. 54% of the people that watch my channel regularly are not subscribed. You don't even need to click the bell. Just hit the red button. Here's my interview. Hey everybody, this is a really special treat. I've made many videos with Tosin, but I have the entire Animals as Leaders band in town here in Atlanta. They're playing tonight at the Buckhead Theater. Welcome, guys. It's great to have you guys here. Tosin, you've actually never been here to the studio.
It's my first time here. We've Zoomed, but yeah.
And we did our thing with Misha and Tim.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was fun.
That was fun.
Yeah.
So you guys are touring on your new record, which is really amazing. I love the new record.
Thank you.
What's going on? Tell me what's happening. What's the latest?
If it's a perfect storm of things, I think the new album is the first we've released, and it's going on 6 years.
Yeah.
And obviously concerts were not a thing for a couple of years, so I think having a new album out and doing the first tour in like close to 3 years, it's just the shows have been super packed and the energy has just been
crazy. I
yeah.
see the stuff on Instagram. It's amazing.
Yeah, we're stoked. People are just like smiling and like hopping around. It's pretty cool.
Feels good to play new music also, after touring an album cycle, you start getting bored of
the same old stuff.
Yeah. And we were touring heavily, but almost milking the existing catalog because we hadn't taken the time off to write new stuff. And I think even with how we wrote on this, like, Matt's drumming becoming just even more intrinsic to the songs and compositions, and then how it's translating live. I think we've inadvertently written in a way that, like, when you see it in real time, it almost hits you harder, or makes more sense than even listening on record. So these are all like really great things to have kind of coalesce at the same time.
When did you actually write all the music? When were you guys, because when you and I talked, we talked through the whole last couple of years, and I knew that you had kind of started writing stuff, but then it seems like the whole record got written and
I don't know. So 2019, we started getting it down inside of the box.
Okay.
But like a lot of this stuff, Tosin will have these riffs that he works on for like years, like there's this one I've been hearing you play that for like 5 or 6 years now. I thought it was a Meshuggah song, like a deep cut, I literally thought that.
Obsessing over Frederick Humphrey's guitar player.
But so there's like these things that, he just kind of like crafts over time, and I'm trying to like learn as I'm seeing this too, like, okay, like, some people, they'll write a song in a day or something, and there's something to that, sure, but like there's also something to letting something hit you, and okay, if this comes up again in my psyche a week from now, I know that it's like, something cool. It sticks inside my mind, and then over years and years.
Yeah.
So like, well, there's some of that you've brought to the table, but then there's like songs like Red Me, so that we just
beautiful.
I think started with something that
it also started with I had an Eventide H9, and one of the presets was the stutter delay.
Right.
That almost sounded like you copy and pasted the same note. It was like very, and I made a little thing with it, and that's all I had really for the song. So kind of what Matt's saying, sometimes there's like an old idea, but it's just a seed, and then we get together and we're able to flesh it out. But then there's songs like Monomyth, which he had kind of composed on the drums.
Okay.
And there was some rudimentary like synth stuff, but then me and Javier were having to write harmony layered on top of this rhythmic composition he made. And so that's kind of what I mean about how intrinsic a lot of the drumming has become, because there's certain songs, if I do a clinic or something, there's certain songs I'm like, if Matt's not on stage, I feel like this doesn't they're not gonna
the same impact.
Yeah, because it's almost like the focus shifts more to like this percussive thematic energy versus what we're doing.
Do you feel that you want to develop new techniques for each record? Are you thinking about stuff like that?
I am.
Like the selective picking stuff that you're doing.
Yeah, I remember sending you some of that over
Right.
That's when it was kind of.
When you were just starting to come, he's like, you sent me some things, like, check this out.
Yeah,
and then.
yeah. And it ended up in the music. So I'm very technique driven because I see it as a way of coaxing more expression out of the instrument, and depending on the technique you use, you will compose something differently. And with the selective picking thing, I definitely wanted to take it. We've used it on record before,
Yeah.
but songs like Microaggression are almost like an entire, like it's like a magnum opus to selective picking.
Well, it's kind of like you're talking about the H9 thing with the stutter delay.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of you take a sound that inspires you, and you build you build
build
ideas
something from
around
there.
it. Whatever.
Also, there's like we've tried to do combinations of the techniques, like with the last album with Arrhythmophobia was the first time we did like harmonies while we're thumping. This time around, we're doing in Monomyth. There's a selective picking part and a thumping part happening at the same time. Normally, it would be just one or the other.
And I'm realizing it's actually become part of the palette now. Like I think hearing this suite of techniques on an Animals record, it's like you're gonna know it's us, and they all have a different character and timbre, and so it is almost like instead of reaching for an effects pedal or something like that, you can kind of do it.
Use
in
the
hand.
effects pedal.
Yeah.
Now, Javier, is it when you guys are kind of working on your guitar parts together? If one of you has a technique, I mean, are there any things that are awkward to do at first?
100%.
Right? Like all of it. Do you find it? Do you have to? Do you say, "Oh, this is weird," and have to practice it a lot?
Yeah. For whatever, I mean, he's way more technique driven than I am. I kind of just let him, steer that ship. For whatever reasons, I'm like, oh, cool, you added 3 extra fingers to this one thing that was already
Cool, bro.
Cool.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's like send me a video of that thing or whatever,
And then he will. And then I just have to figure it out by ear.
No, dude, he does do that
Yeah,
though,
2
right? He
days
sends you
before the
videos.
tour, he sends
This
it.
is I'm doing it.
He
I'll send
has.
you a little
And
instructional
sometimes
thing.
I'm like, send me a video. He's like, I don't know how to do it.
it'll be like
I forget. Or something.
sometimes the writing process, kind of like how you were asking like when did the songs begin, and sometimes it'll be like, for instance, The Problem of Other Minds was a demo that existed for two years.
Yeah, that was the first
That
one.
was the first
You know what I
2019.
mean? So we had begun a pre-production, and then it stalled, and then even as it when we picked it back up, there were still hiccups in between. So this is actually the longest window of time we've like been working on a record, and sometimes it's like, yo, what's that weird thing on the demo? And I'd be like, I kind of have to relearn it before
Right.
I can tell you what
I mean,
it is.
there'd be parts where, like, literally we're working, on editing something, and he's just kind of in the background noodling, and all of a sudden he was like, yo, let's figure out how to put this in there.
Let's
somehow.
add this, yeah.
And literally it'll be 3-4 seconds of something that we somehow eventually made into a riff. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's kind of all over the place as far as what's done before and what's actually happening in real time. There's probably more stuff real time than pre-made riffs, if you will. I mean,
I think it's a nice balance. It's interesting. I've had songs where I've almost been able to play them all the way through it on the guitar, and they're really almost foundationally guitar pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens with the drums and other parts are it's almost obvious what you need to do. Or the inverse will be true, or Hav or I will have barely anything, and then we'll all sit together, and then a whole song emerges. And I found that how well those songs come out is interesting. Some of the best ones are because it was almost entirely written before the recording, and then some of the best ones are because like virtually nothing was written, and
Right.
we were able to just make it happen.
Microaggressions, you basically had it all mapped
Basically
out.
had it
was
all.
all there.
Red Miso was just that intro.
Yeah, it was all us.
Or look
just
at
us three.
What's the from Madness?
Oh, Cognitive Contortion?
No,
Arrhythmo?
no,
Back 5 and consist.
no. Sorry.
Ecto?
Billy.
It's the one we were talking about putting on the story. Ding, 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 ding.
Oh, Inner Assassins.
Inner Assassins. Okay, I had one riff, and then the melody was written in real time, and like all of the subsequent stuff, like happened in the writing session, and it's one of my favorite songs.
That's
from
my
that
fault.
record.
I remember I came up with dun, 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 ga, ga, ga. And then Shank was like, oh, let me make it like feel like it's 4.
Yeah.
And then it just like took it in a totally different direction. And I'm
Matt's rhythm.
like, I'm almost like, is this okay?
His rhythmic vocabulary, it's like
Insane.
it's insane.
It's not even just the vocabulary; it's the ability to perceive a rhythm from many different angles. So
But
it's
deliver
like,
it in a way that I feel like what these guys have pushed me to do. Because from the get-go, it's like I had ideas like that. But there's a difference between having some crazy avant-garde rhythm that no one's played before and having something that can hit, that
Right.
can make someone feel visceral about it. And
Yeah.
that's not, it's in this, yes, it's like, in a top headspace where it's heady. And that's where I think metal lives a lot of times. So
Where did you record all this stuff?
There's 3 songs that we recorded at a studio in Burbank called Sphere Studios.
Okay.
And then the rest we did at East West Studios, and that's just drums. From there, we recorded all the guitars at a homie studio. His name's Nick Morzov. He has just like a small production studio that,
it's got a live room in there.
Did you
Live
record?
room.
Now you use real amps on some of this, or
We
on a
did.
lot
Yeah,
of
we originally started off with the neural plugin that he had.
Yep.
I don't know if you feel this way, but the sonic results were good. We were like, this sounds good, but we also had the live room and amps, and I think there was a level of like, let's reamp it and see if
Yeah.
it sounds better, sort of thing.
it? Did you have finished DIs that you were actually reamping through a reamp box?
Yeah, but then a lot of times we would just redo it. I mean, there were
Yeah.
multiple
it
times.
changes it, right? Like,
Well,
Well,
like
that's
feeling an actual amp, right?
Yeah, it's totally different. I mean, to me,
Yes.
reamping is not close to being as good as actual replaying it.
yeah,
well, there's
Yeah.
the experience of playing through a real amp or a modeler,
Yeah.
which you're right. You may play differently because of how the amp feels. In the realm of reamping, you usually have a reference tone, and you already have an idea of what you want that part to sound like. So
Yeah.
then you can almost get away with, say, less gain than you would have desired when executing it, but you can dial that back for clarity on the recording. So there's some advantages to not actually physically playing it when you're dialing the tone.
Absolutely.
I feel like also with like the psychology with using like an Axe Effects or any plugin, it's like here's your guitar and you try to sculpt whatever you can because you have all these bells and whistles just to do what you're to give you the sound that you want out of the one guitar. When you start messing with different amps and pedals and preamps and all sorts of stuff, you're like, well, okay, this sounds good, but it sounded good with this other guitar. You start kind of jumping around a little bit, and it was like a different type of experimentation that we'd never really done on any of the previous albums, and we were just taking full advantage of it.
I don't think you're crafting a tone simply based off of the sonic result. I think there's a feel thing in it, like,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah,
and so
100%.
I felt like it was cool to have a performance pre-recorded, plug it into various amps, sculpt that as almost like a third party, and it almost like the reduction of bandwidth that you're not actually the one doing this, like allows you to hear in a different way, and you go for different things because there's no feel at that point. So I thought it was cool reamping. And I don't want to get like super technical, and I don't know if this is right, but not only do I feel that the amps had a different presence in the actual image of the mix, there was certain things in the low end compression, like when you do a palm mute and stuff like that,
Yeah.
the way it compresses in the low end, and
Yeah.
just the breakup, the character of the breakup. There's all these kind of detailed differences with the real speaker and mic that it was almost like we did less fundamentally.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of it, I mean, most of the guitar tracks actually have very little processing.
Yeah.
Normally, it's like when I've used anything else, it's like tons of processing and then tons of more processing. So we were trying to like dial that back, and
bit more raw and fundamental. We also don't boost low end or seek out amps or speakers that have a wider range than a traditional guitar speaker. We just never found it necessary to like, oh, I need a 15-inch speaker.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's
You could plug an 8-string into a JCM 800 and it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier with the string gauge and like the amplitude within the string as an
That's right.
energy source. The lower the pitch, the more forceful that wave is. And so it's fun to use an 8-string and to try to get away with as little gain as possible, especially if you have like a single coil or split coil articulation, because it gets really growl. It's like this growl.
Yeah.
You hear the stringiness.
Yeah,
of
oh,
it.
yeah.
It's
I
gratifying.
would say like I feel like in most metal albums you can really distinctly hear the bass taking care of the low end.
Yeah, except
With-
on certain Metallica records.
You're right. With the Animal stuff, we almost had to figure out how to balance it, but also at the same time poke out a little bit more. But
Yeah.
a lot of the low end is actually from the guitar. I mean, we tried doing things, do a high pass on 200 or 120 or something like that. It's like, actually, no, you just kind of leave it in there. It was a lot of experimentation, a lot of,
Trial and error.
trial and error, and also at the same time trying to figure out what tricks kind of work for us.
Yeah.
Because I'll watch tutorials, and this works for that band, and this works for that band. I'll try to apply it to us, and it's like, nope.
Well, I remember hitting you up about, because we were shopping mix engineers.
Yeah.
And you were cluing me into dudes who were just like, as far as engineering guitar tones, like just the guys. But we're in this weird area where it's like, all right, it's an 8-string guitar.
That's right. You don't have traditional guitar.
That's thumping.
Yes.
You know,
Right.
like you said, like you guys have different timbres techniques that you're applying. That, I mean, who's the authority on that? People would probably say us.
Right.
Right.
There's no real frame of reference besides what we're attempting to do. So,
Yeah.
and I guess so. We defaulted into mixing it on our own again. Yeah.
It in some ways, it'd be. I mean, there'd be times where it was just me and Nick in the studio messing around, and I'll start getting a creative idea, and I'm like, oh, I kind of want to just start add this. I'll remove all the synths that were there and replace them. Little things like that where I've reamped the rhythm tones, but now the lead tone is shot, and I have to figure out. I was like, Tosin, you need to come in, reamp or replay this part. So there was a lot of that happening, and as picky as the three of us are when it comes to that stuff, it just seems to work. I definitely
take a
don't
little longer.
I definitely
That's
don't consider
definitely
myself top tier mixing engineer, but when I know what I like and I don't what I don't like, and I know what they don't like.
Yeah,
Well-
you have the advantage of us too, which is like,
Yeah, I mean, Matt's
we
like,
are the clients in a way, and it's like, yeah.
Matt has hawk ears, and it's like me and Tosin are like, it's perfect, everything's to the grid. Matt will
Like,
come in and
please
you
isolate
guys
this.
played that wrong.
He's like, play it at half speed. Up.
Yeah, to us it
Played
just
that
sounds
wrong.
like
Shift space bar, please.
Transformers
Yes.
on slow mo, and he's like, "Yo, that's wrong right there. Look," and we're just like, "Oh, I guess he's right."
Guess I'm good for something other than just playing drums.
So tell me about the drum tracking. So you did some at
Yeah.
East West and some at
Sphere.
at Sphere.
Yeah.
What is Sphere? What do they have there? What kind of is it a good
It's
size
a great.
room?
Oh yeah, it's a great size room. We would have continued to do the rest there, but Francesco Camelli ended up letting go of the studio. So we ended up doing the rest at East West. System of a Down did. What's the big album? The big
Tons of
pepperoni
bands.
Toxicity
mushrooms?
or whatever?
Toxicity. That's the big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Just mic'd the hell out of it. Made sure all the phase was nice, all the sounds were nice, but there's still sample replacement. Like
Sorry, not sorry.
But
yeah. I mean,
well, I don't know if you. So there's like the record you may want to engineer and the way you may want to engineer it, and then there's like being on a playlist with all the modern metal bands who
Right.
are engineering, they're sound replacing every snare and kick hit, and you don't want your recording to like come on in a playlist and just because you didn't use the same processes have it sound so, or you could, I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's you know, do you make the records? I mean, you do have to be competitive if you're in
Absolutely.
a playlist. You have
Yeah.
to be competitive. There's no question about that.
There are things that get lost for sure. Sampling, like, you know, going like, you know, something like that, where it's
Yeah.
like, it's like you're not gonna get that to sound fully right. You know,
It
with
takes a
just
lot of-
samples. So like mixing them, you know, with each other, I think is definitely the move. And the overheads. You
To
know.
be fair, we sampled him with his own kit. So it wasn't
Yeah.
like we downloaded some library, we made our own samples to use, you know,
Yeah.
with his own.
For the most part, it works. There's like, I mean, yeah, there's things that I can pick up on. I don't know if other people can, but
Oh, no one.
Mere mortals.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, overheads. You know, there's like, yeah, you're not gonna sample replace a hi hat.
Yeah, no,
it's not
No.
gonna
No,
sound
that
right.
that lives as it is, and
Yeah.
if there's too much bleed, you make it work. If there's not, you make
But
it work.
you know, yeah, there is definitely editing that happens with the drums, but it doesn't stop me from being like, no, I want it to be as close to perfect as possible, because I know whenever you start editing, the more you have to move around tom hits and stuff,
Yeah.
the crazier it gets with, like, you know, getting them to be in phase with each other, and like,
Yeah. Well,
just sounding like losing fullness and sounding phasey. It sounds like if you just chop up drums 16th notes and put it straight on a grid, I can hear it. It's weird.
Also, I think you lose a huge percent of the value that he has as a player if you start hyper editing everything. So
Yeah.
he does all his comps, and then we edit as best as we can, but without doing every single hit. You know, like
Right.
there might be a little section here and there.
I was there with Nick, and it's like, yeah, it's like, dude, you can, like, there's certain sections, double bass, crazy sections. It's like, yes.
And what we'll do after that is
Edit that.
edit the guitars to him.
Okay.
So a lot of editing is involved. You know, we don't see sunlight for days on end. It's kind of
It's
sad.
intense.
Okay, so how is it to play these new songs live? How many are you doing in your set? Are you mixing stuff up? You playing different
5 new
songs each
songs.
night?
5 new songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 new ones. It feels great playing them. They're translating. I think my sense with this record is a type of refining of what the three of us sound like as contributors and composers and performers. And, you know, there's a lot of guitar-driven composition where, like, the guitar is such the focal point that everything else sounds or feels supplementary, and
Yeah.
that makes sense for certain things. But like I was saying earlier, I feel like a lot of this material, it's no one's replaceable, and that some
You guys have a
result
band
is, like,
sound. I mean, there's no question
yeah,
about it. You do.
It's kind of at that point.
Yeah.
And so the live thing is like the fact that that's even connecting further with the reality of the three humans producing it. I think with this record, we didn't go overboard with like a ton of synths and layers. There is kind of like a meat and potatoes. I'm not gonna say it sounds like a trio, but when you see it live, I don't know. I've been like
Gordian knot is hitting
Yeah.
so hard,
Yeah,
bro.
it's
In that
just
end
like-
section too is like,
Yeah.
by the time we hit that, and then hit him with microaggressions right after,
That's
it's
hitting
like
too, yeah.
guitar god, and I'm just, you know, straight double bass
Yeah.
like the whole time.
We've
It's
had
like-
experiences, you know, where we were stoked about a song. It was like, oh man, it's so crazy. And then we've got to play live. We're like, this is so not translating.
It's kind of weird, yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, going back to what Tosin's saying, I think we're slowly refining that. Whether it's due to performing and knowing what does well, you know, performance-wise.
Even the problem of their minds, I would think, might be like less, you know, intense of a song, or like less received with less open arms. But yeah, it seems like every time we finish that song, people are like,
Stoked.
hell yeah! It just it does something different, you know, like some of the like acoustic tunes like Brain Dance or things like that. It's like, hey, there's another side to us just being brutal metal.
The scope of the record is like deep enough that even if you tease out some stuff, there's still like rewards for getting the rest of the album. So yeah.
But you don't know necessarily how the songs are going to come across to people until you actually hit the stage the first time.
Right.
Yeah, and that
Right?
disconnect has existed before, and it's sometimes we write for the purity of creating a song, and we don't really care if it's like you would need 3 arms to play it or whatever the case is. We're just like, bro, like, and then, but I think subconsciously we have refined our ability to understand how it will translate on stage, and I think this tour, this new album, it feels like that. Like all the new ones just are hitting. So
Okay, so Billy is the biggest Animals as Leaders fan in the world, and Billy's been my assistant for 3 years. Now, Billy, what's a question you would want to ask them?
I don't know, what's your guys' favorite album?
oh, that's a good question.
I'm gonna say this one. Like, I think it's refined. When I hear it, I'm not really like, I wish we would have done it this other way. I'm having less of that than I have with any previous release. There was also, you know, we would talk about, it's like, oh, I remember being like, I want this album to be heavy. Like, we're coming back, we're already 10 years in. I want it to, and it's heavy. It's a heavy album, but it's still got everything that we do. I don't know. I'm a fan.
It's a hard question. I almost want to say this latest one, and some of it has to do with like not even the recorded material, like the artwork and the videos we did, kind of are on a different tier of expression than what we've done before. I think the full package of this release is like more cohesive than anything we've done, and I think there's no real like it's a concise album, but I think that was purposeful, and it's like you said, I don't know, like the actual drum tones and the guitar tones are the most organic, but like still very impactful. So yeah, maybe this record.
I know where you're going, where you're in the back of your mind, what you're thinking maybe, is that each record kind of has its own thing.
Matt's
you know?
actually got the proper answer to
Like-
this question. This was a test question to see how you guys would answer this in an interview.
I love all my children.
Matt, teach them how to answer this question the right way.
Okay, so the Madness of Many is like extremely explorative, and then the Joy of Motion was very refined, right? And it was very like packaged, and just like everything was very clean and neat and organized. And then I would say Weightless was a departure from the first album, an Earth departure, perhaps you might say. Yeah, but obviously the first album is like, you know, what put Animals as Leaders on the map.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't yet a member, but I was like, holy shit, this is the band that I want to play for.
Imagine that.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I was hanging out with Ivan actually, and we were drinking a bottle of Jack together, studying for some class that we were taxation in the music business, and like
Sounds awesome.
you know,
you remember this?
yeah, and he's playing this, and I'm like, dude, this band was made for me.
So first album.
Well, no, because personally, like, I love the first album. Nothing can replace what that did for me in my life. But like, do I go back and like, do I reminisce the same way? No. And part of it's because I'm, you know, in the band. I've played it a million times. Yes.
a million times.
But like, it's also part of it is like, no, like the culmination of everything that we've done on this new album to me is, yeah, it's absolutely the refining of.
Yeah.
There we go.
It's like
That's the right answer.
What he
Yeah.
said.
yeah, it's the pinnacle.
Billy hit you with a trick
This
question.
is us peaking. Next album will not be this good, so enjoy it now.
It'll be better.
We'll see.
I
We'll
already
see.
have some ideas.
Maybe
It'll be better.
not. Maybe not. So come see us live now while we still got it.
There we go. There we go. Okay, anything else, Billy? What's another thing that
Have you composed anything else on the 9 strings?
No 9-string stuff, and it's almost because like I'm playing the Abasi guitars and we don't make a 9-string, and the 9-string is like maybe that's one too many.
It actually it made the
This
production
is the
side
point,
of it
dude.
even more. I mean, we're already having some bass issues with the 8 string. We're like, I can't go lower than the guitar. So, the 9 is even lower than that.
Yeah, but we say that, but the new Meshuggah record has
Right.
some
It has
what
some-
I think is 9-string range stuff, and when you hear it, you're just like, ooh,
Yeah, that's true.
I must do that too. So we'll see. I think for whatever reason, I think metal discovered this probably in the new metal days with downtuning guitars, but
Yeah.
then I think hip hop is always known with just like 808s, and then there's dubstep.
That's right.
It's like low frequency ranges used like conspicuously and synced to drums is just a recipe for
power.
yeah.
It hits that primal part of
Yeah.
the brain, the
Yeah.
third eye. The
Yeah.
gut. Actually, the gut brain probably is what, because you feel it, like you're like,
The
oh
gut brain.
man.
That brain.
I just remember when dubstep got popular, and I'm just seeing. I'm like, you're listening to metal, kind of. You just don't know it, but
Right.
it sounds like a breakdown or a beatdown or something, right? But
Yeah.
So anyway, 9-string stuff. In the future, I think we may tune a little lower than we have. I just put that out there.
I don't know the 9 string. Last time he busted it out, I was like, I'm gonna play a 6 string on this song.
Plot twist.
I was like, I'm good.
That one's funny
Private
because
visions
it's
of a
Private Visions of the World. Yeah,
Yeah.
that one is. It's a chord melody almost throughout the entire song, and you wouldn't necessarily assume it was on it. There's certain moments it's obvious, but I think a lot of guitars get these extended range guitars and they feel they have to just like fixate on the low register, and so I tried not to do that with that song.
I'm really looking forward to the show tonight.
The production's looking cool. I think you enjoy it. We're doing like I feel like the set is a journey. It's very dynamic in its arc. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you
Thanks,
for having
Rick.
us.
The first Animals as Leaders album, like I wrote while living in Atlanta, so playing there is always we have friends. My buddy Jay lives here. He did all the artwork and the first music video, all that shit. And now homie Rick Beato lives here.